wine country event. We have a really cool spread set up for you guys today. So these guys represent to me what I think of when I think of the sharp end of the sword of Santa Barbara County winemaking. Passionate, young, dedicated people who fortunately are into a bigger source that's ours. So we'll be tasting through Ernst Storm, Storm wines, Kevin Law, Luminesce, and Luceant. Presqu'ile, Labyrinth, and Dieter running us through some Presqu'ile wines. So what I love about working with these guys is their dedication and their passion and their commitment to Presqu'ile vineyard. Among other sources. I mean, I buy cases of each one of these guys' wines, so I personally love them. And what I think is so cool about what they're doing is just, you know, they all exhibit, you know, the essence of the site from whatever site they're making wine from, whether it's Presqu'ile or John Sebastiano vineyard with Ernst, Tally, or you make one from Letitia still? Yep. Yeah, sure. Letitia. So I think when I think of balance, which is critical in winemaking, if you want to have ability and really show off a site, you know, you think of acidity, pH, and the balance between new oak, neutral oak, different kinds of fermentation vessels. So these guys will get into all those cool kind of gory details for you guys, and we'll really geek out this afternoon. So, without further ado, I think we'll start off with the Presqu'ile. Thank you guys.
Hi everybody. I'm going to be trying to moderate this, but we're going to try and keep it as informal as possible. I think this is small enough that we really have a good time and you know, really get to listen to each of the winemaker kind of try and explain how they interpreted our vineyard. I think it's almost like if you would think of various artists kind of painting a water plant or water paint, it's just a different interpretation of pretty much the same art. Just to give you some history of the Santa Barbara Valley. They've been growing grapes here since the Mexican colonial period in 1830. Really started going commercially in 1960 for a lot of the bigger producers. And the beauty of this valley, geographically speaking, if you look out that window, you've got the Southern Hills running over here. Out the other window, you've got the San Rafael Mountains. And this forms what we all know as the Santa Barbara Valley, which is a very unique kind of geographical feature where it interacts with the ocean. Together with Santa Rita Hills, it's probably the only transverse valleys on the west coast of the United States growing grapes. And so we do tend to get a lot of the marine influence blocks against the mountains, creates a cooler area. UC Davis actually developed a system to grade, you know, kind of the general climate of an area. It's called the Winkler system. It's graded on 5 different steps, 5 being the warmest, 1 being the coolest, and Santa Maria is actually a 1, which means it's a very cool growing area, and that obviously determines kind of the style of wine it comes from here. It tends to have a longer growing season, more acidity, and tends to have a lower alcohol with as good ripeness as you could tend to see in some of the warmer areas that have to wait a lot longer to get that. So yeah, first off, we have Ernst Storm's Sauv Blanc, actually one of my favorites. Strangely enough, there's only one American on this panel. Southerners have definitely invaded the Santa Maria Valley, so when it comes to Kevin's side, please be patriotic. But yeah, Ernst, tell us a little bit about your 2012 Sauv Blanc, and yeah, okay.
So yeah, like you just said, South African, I'm also South African. Yeah, we met out there in California, and I befriended Matt, and they've been very nice to sell all the food to us. And it's very apparent in all the wines that we get made from Presqu'ile Vineyard that there's a spicy element in it, white and red, especially made in a balanced style like this. So, you know, when it comes to winemaking, you have to think of ways to not take away from that kind of spicy element, but what's going to add to it. So, this Sauvignon Blanc was fermented in neutral oak and also a little bit of acacia wood, which acacia is obviously not oak. It's been used in France for a long time in white Bordeaux. It really respects the fruit without giving you that vanillin toastiness. What it does is it really amplifies the aromatics, and it also gives texture to the wine. It almost gives the wine like a salinity. So this has about 30% new acacia, fermented in 3 different vessels. It was only 60 cases, so it was 3 barrels each with a different yeast. One was natural, and the other 2 were inoculated. And with that, I felt like it really broadened the spectrum on the nose and the palate. And then aged on the lees for 8 months. And what that does is it pulls texture. And so, you know, the idea is to really capture Presqu'ile vineyard, and I think this wine basically, in my opinion, captured, you know, aromatically and also texturally the site, which you will see in all these wines. It's very apparent, and it's very exciting to work with a site like this.
Would you say that the cooler weather that we tend to get here tends to be, or is the reason for us being able to make such spicy wines with necessarily a little bit more of the green notes and a little bit more of the herbaceous notes shown?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the weather and also the soils. It's very old marine layer soils, very deep, very sandy, well drained, and it's just funny how this bench differs from where Luminesce is. I feel like there's a lot more spice on this end, like flaky spice, and a lot more darker kind of spice on the other end of the valley.
I think it's interesting to see that there's some kind of southern hemisphere character created on the Sauvignon Blanc. I don't know if you guys are familiar with drinking, you know, Sauvignon Blanc from two different sides of the hemisphere, but it might be in our genetics or just how we learn how to make Sauvignon Blanc. But we do tend to be able to expose your southern hemisphere character on the wine with the styles both at Storm and Presqu'ile wines. What do you say, Keith? Coming from the homeland of
well, New Zealand does a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, and there's definitely a time between, obviously, the South Africans and New Zealanders, certainly a little bit of a white belly in France. But to me, there's more of a roundness and fullness. I mean, you capture that herbaceousness, but you also have an element of fruit that just makes the wine a little more fuller. It takes away from being a little one-dimensional, as New Zealand wines can be. This is kind of, to me, more a world style wine rather than a New Zealand style. Perhaps it's set up California. You would not set the style of wine generally across California.
Yeah, I think it's definitely from working in South Africa and working with New Zealand winemakers that consulted in South Africa with me, and in South Africa a lot of French people come and work there too. So you kind of formulate your style based on this and take away what you feel is best and what you feel is the best way to represent the vineyard. And so it's ever evolving. I really like what the Acacia does to this blend, and then least contact and you know, picking on the earlier side. I think completes the wine.
Yeah, Ernst and I actually did the same winemaking school, so we do come from the same kind of side of winemaking. We had the same professor, things of that nature. Everything he does in these Sauvignon Blanc tends to be quite contagious, which is so delicious. So you wouldn't be surprised if you see those Acacia experimenting here at Presqu'ile in the future. I really do believe it brings something different. It separates the wine from the general California style. If you can do those things and create a unique identity for the wine, I think it's great. Anyway, next up, our 2013 Sauvignon Blanc. I think it's a good comparison. 12 was lower tonnage than we had in 13. 13 also being the first year we made wine in this building. So the Sauvignon Blanc you're drinking here was pressed in that machine right behind you guys there, pretty much all of it. And so it's quite kind of a memorable wine for us. Even though I do think 13 was not necessarily the greatest vintage comparatively speaking, even though the wines in themselves were very good. It was obviously a little warmer vintage than 12 and even warmer than 11. So the preceding vintages tended to show slightly more cool weather Sauvignon Blanc notes, as Ernst showed, with a little bit of that greenish cut grass thing going on. 13 being a little warmer, you do tend to get the middle spectrum of Sauvignon Blanc. If you imagine it starting the flavor profile at green notes, going through your kind of melon flavors, and then ending with your tropical fruit, guava flavors, mango flavors like that. We're kind of in the middle on our 2013 vintage with that wine. We do ferment everything wild, as many of you guys know. So we don't add any yeast to these wines. And I guess the philosophy behind that really is just the fact that it comes off of the property and that we want to create a sense of place in our wines. So we do ferment everything wild. I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I guess it's just each person's kind of philosophy with those things. We do then use three different styles of fermentation, one being stainless steel, one being concrete, and one being neutral oak. I think in our mind, we always wanted to have our wine represent both sides of the world when it comes to Sauvignon Blanc. And so the stainless steel represents the southern hemisphere and the style of wine that creates. And then the neutral oak and the concrete creates more of the northern hemisphere style when it comes to a little bit more mineral-driven wines and wines with a little bit more density on the palate. The southern hemisphere Sauvignon Blancs can be quite narrow sometimes and thin, even though they smell fantastic. And we were trying to fix that with some of the neutral oak and the concrete. Concrete also adds a little bit of minerality, as you can only imagine. It's kind of a modern day clay, so it breathes a little bit, you get a little softer mouthfeel because of that as well. And then we age it in those vessels for about 6 months, and out she goes. So really something, as Ernst represents the vintage very much, ours is the same, really kind of designed for days like today. Some oysters, some seafood, something of that nature would really go well. Yeah. I think it's just it's easy. It's an interesting comparison of the vintage differences. I think the beauty of wine lies in comparison. People that make single-tone wines obviously have a place in the business, but I do believe that your vintage just can't taste the same. It's just not true to nature. And so having a different vintage interpreted by a different guy, I think is pretty interesting.
So is this basically all from the one block, or is it one property?
It's all one block, right outside the back here. Planted to various clones. The block kind of has a little bit of art to it, so you do have slight south-north facing to it, but it's not intense. We have various clones that are not normally planted in California. Clone 1, which is probably the most planted, tends to be created in the style that people make a Chardonnay, so it's kind of created its own identity for Sauvignon Blanc in California. So what we thought we would separate ours from that with slightly different clones and slightly different harvest dates. So as I was explaining the flavor profile, we want to get a little bit of everything. Some early, which is green, some in the middle, which will give you melon flavors, and some towards the end, which will give you your tropical flavors with enough acid in it, of course. So yeah, it's only one block, 15 acres, and I think Sauvignon Blanc almost like layer cakes. The more you can add, the more interesting it becomes. And every little piece of thing you do different in the winery kind of creates another layer. Blend it all together. The base.
Question about the Sauv Blancs. I was fascinated that the Storm Sauv Blanc seemed to have so much spice, pepper, character to it, which is not unpleasant. It's great, but it's so unique from Presqu'ile Sauv Blanc. Yet these all come from the same block.
Yes.
So is that
Absolutely.
What influences that most? Is that winemaker influence, or?
Ernst, you've got one harvest with us, right?
Yeah, so I basically have one little section, so I get one chance. So in a perfect world, I'd love to be able to pick, 3 different picks, but I have to get that pick, either on the riper side or either on the lower side. And this is definitely like one of their greener picks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so with that, with Sauvignon Blanc, you basically have these 3 precursors. You have what they call like Grape, box tree, precursor in the fruit, and then you have kind of the citrus in the middle, and then the tropical. And that's all determined by sun exposure and how late in the season you pick it. And so this was probably on the greener side. And then by yeast action that gets broken and it becomes actually something that you can smell. So knowing that, I definitely wanted to make something more with that kind of jalapeno, but with a little bit of gooseberry in there too. It's nice when you have both of those. When it's not just the kind of the bell pepper, then it's kind of one-dimensional. But if you can manage to get that kind of gooseberry in there that the New Zealand summer plants have a lot too, with texture, I think that's the goal.
So we definitely had a couple tanks that was very similar in profile like this, but at the end of the day, they never come together. And we're still experimenting, and we're fortunate enough to have enough grapes and enough vessels to kind of check which style we like. And that's obviously an ongoing experiment. It will take a lifetime, but we're fortunate to get a little bit of everything, see what works for us. And so I think it's quite admirable to just have one pick at it and make it that good, as I say.